Joining us on AccuWeather Weekend, I'm Melissa Constanzer.
And I'm Anna Azallion. Well, from the fire threat in the Northeast to snow and what's left of some thunderstorms. That's what we have going on this Sunday.
Yeah, there is at least some very active weather across some of the southern U.S. Some of us, though, are thinking, hey, it's a quiet Sunday and enjoy it while you got it here. We do have all of this stormy weather anywhere from Texas, Oklahoma, eastward to the Carolinas. Notice the sharp cutoff to the north. You're really not getting in on the action, but we do have still a little bit of breeze coming in over the Great Lakes.
Yeah, and in the Northeast, we just cannot get rid of the snow. We have several waves of it working its way through. Now, this morning, we've seen a lot of dry air, not a lot of the snow actually reaching the ground or accumulating.
Yeah, and that does mean that today it'll kind of be a back and forth battle. Notice the radar across the south here. We do have the showers, the thunderstorms lining up here through the Florida Panhandle. Again, some working their way through places like Pensacola, Tallahassee, even dealing with some of that rumbling going on I-20, Birmingham, through Tuscaloosa, right over to Jackson. That stretch there, very wet. So we are still dealing with that in places like Columbus, Mississippi. We're going to continue to deal with some of that rain. Good news is severe weather threat, at least at this point, hasn't really matriculated yet. So we have had at least some dry weather really take hold here, and that's led to the drought conditions, but the rain is needed. Notice we do need that rain, and we'll get it here across Georgia and the Carolinas. Could we have an isolated tornado? It's a possibility. So just keep that in mind if you are out and about. Today, across the south, we have the showers and thunderstorms. First wave working its way through this afternoon. But the main storm is still through Mississippi this evening, and that's going to keep firing up the chance for rain. We've got some Sunday fun for you this morning. There's good news this week from high in California nest. Well, some good news for those birds. It's a little warmer today throughout parts of California. Yeah, we've enjoyed temperatures back into the upper 60s here in San Diego, 77 into Southern California, especially as you get the upslope areas. And we even could see some more snow across Flagstaff. Very welcomed as we get nearer and nearer to the end of the wet season. But there's a bigger storm on Wednesday into Thursday, and you can see this one. All right, let's talk about the north central U.S. because it feels like we've finally turned the page into spring. And if that weather has an impact, I'm going to guess it's going to have an impact of getting outside a little bit more this week. Notice the numbers here. 53 in Minneapolis, 59 in Chicago puts us 15 degrees above historical averages. We make that run closer and closer to the 60-degree mark. But we don't stop there. There's more warmth coming at us as we head into Monday. In fact, record-challenging high temperatures across.
Thanks for sticking with us here on AccuWeather Weekend. Well, classify daylight saving time as the bad news. Here is the good news. The map right behind me for the north central region of the country, at least. No shading is good on a map like this. And the shading we do have, breezy and milder, hey, we will take it, especially when we talk about tomorrow. Record-challenging highs once again. Most of these cities set to break the previous record high. Grand Forks, North Dakota, you are the exception here. 1 degree off from the previous record set back in 1977 and tied in 1990. But still, 53 degrees, that is not bad for kind of early to mid-March, whatever you would classify where we are at this point. Doesn't last, though. Tuesday, we have a cold front moving through, and there's that cooler air that comes in behind it. Take a look at what this does for somewhere like Chicago. Or at least spring-like weather. Starting Monday, we have a big warm-up for a large portion of the country, getting into the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, depending on where you are. And Tuesday, things get even better. We see this move a little bit further to the east and a little bit further to the north. New England, you're not quite getting in on the warmth just yet, but a lot of others, the Ohio Valley into the 60s, the 70s, depending on exactly where you are. Now, we do have severe weather to talk about as well. With the warmth, with spring, this is what happens. The first round of severe weather coming Wednesday into Wednesday night. Flooding is going to be the most likely threat, along with damaging wind gusts. But then we get an eve hit by a storm, and you're left with some kind of, devastation, some damage from this storm. Well, a couple things to keep in mind. The first thing is to contact insurance. That should be your first step. Make sure you're taking pictures, videos of any of the damage, and as you work to clean up, keep any receipts so that you can be reimbursed from your insurance. And safety, of course, is important to keep in mind throughout this whole process. And it's important to know when to call a professional. Any power lines involved, any hazards, leave that to the professionals rather than trying to handle it yourself. And talking about safety, some of the key things to keep in mind is to dress appropriately. You want long sleeves, long pants, work boots, work gloves as you're working to clean up, and make sure you're staying off any damaged structures. They could be unstable and you don't want to get hurt. And then of course, if there are any hazards you come across, contact local emergency managers to get some help handling those. Well, we are still going to be seeing some rain falling, maybe a few rumbles of thunder throughout our Monday into the southeast. And the good news is we need it. When we take a look at drought conditions, a lot of areas are seeing that dry conditions, moderate, even some areas of severe drought up into the Carolinas. So we need the rain. We don't need kind of the severe potential that we had over the weekend. That is not hanging on through Monday, though. Take a look at future rainfall and kind of what to expect. The areas in the yellow, that's where we're seeing the heaviest rainfall. It's also overlaps with the drought monitor, right, where we need the rain. So that's the good news. We could see areas of, 2 inches of rainfall in some areas, and that's where flooding does become a concern, especially with any heavy downpours. Flash flooding becomes a concern and something to keep in mind. Let's take a look at future radar and kind of how this plays out. Now, the bulk of the storm will be off the coast for most of our Monday, but kind of the backside of this storm is really hanging on, including Atlanta seeing some heavier rainfall around 8 a.m. Could have some impacts for your morning commute. Something to keep in mind, that maybe give yourself a little bit of extra time, because we all know when it is pouring down rain, sometimes that causes crashes, can cause some traffic on the roads and delay getting to work or school or wherever you need to be first thing Monday morning. Now, by the time we get to the evening hours, we are still seeing the low and the backside of this storm hanging on in the Carolinas, parts of Georgia here, but then finally the storm works its way off the coast and we clear out, even the clouds clear out by the time we get to Tuesday. So something to look forward to, starting off the week on a little bit of a dreary note, but then it does clear up. Now, taking a look at highs for our Monday, a lot of us in the ballpark of where we should be this time of year. When we talk about historical averages of just a few degrees off in Jacksonville, a few degrees off in Atlanta, Nashville even warmer than your historical average.